Hey creatives, welcome back to my channel. Today we are setting up my bullet journal for October 2023. We are going full in with autumn vibes for the setup, and I decided to use a lot of stamps and a lot of stickers, and off camera I also created little combinations of my stamps with watercolors. I did that off camera because I thought it would make the video a bit long, and also I just wanted a little bit of me time, and the process of that was definitely relaxing and fun to do. As always, we are starting with my review page of the last month, which is September, obviously, and as always I like to ask myself a couple of questions, sum up the month in one sentence, journal a bit about my mental and physical health, about highlights and challenges of the month, about some learnings and what I'm thankful for, and recently I also added a little section about the next month. And with this, I'm always a bit more minimalist with the design because I usually want to focus on the writing and not so much on the aesthetically pleasing aspect of this. And if you don't do reflection a lot in your bullet journal, this is something that I want to highly recommend to you, because I feel like it often gets a bit forgotten and into the background in YouTube videos about bullet journaling, especially if it's creative bullet journaling, I would say now. But for me, it is one of the most important parts about bullet journaling. I use my journal a bit for planning and structuring my daily life, of course, but I also write a lot about my feelings and my thoughts and my ideas and stuff like that. And I find it really nice to have a bit of a time capsule where I can always look back and see how I was doing, what I was thinking and feeling in a specific month. And I can now look back several years and see what was going on. And that's pretty cool and handy. And as always, next to my review page, I will create my cover page. And as always, I feel a bit like my cover page doesn't really match the vibes of the rest of the setup. I feel like my cover page is most of the time a bit of a introduction into me getting creative. And I think that's often the case with a lot of creative things. Like I always experienced that with photography. Whenever I was shooting with someone and taking portraits of someone, I always feel like it takes a little bit of time to get into it and to get what you really wanted to achieve and what you had in mind wanting to create. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's why I feel my cover pages usually don't turn out as good as the rest of the setup. And it took me quite a bit with this scrapbooking autumn vibe setup to get into how I wanted it to look and what I had in mind. And I don't know, I still feel it's a bit much and a bit of everything probably. Like I used some washi tape from the washi tape shop, like these pumpkins for example. I also used the stamp watercolor creations that I did, and I used a lot of different stickers. I used some scrapbooking paper, stamps, all that stuff, and just a lot of different motifs. And I guess I could have thought it through more, but hey, in the end it's my bullet journal. It doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see, I also smudged the heading of September in the review page. And that's fine, it's okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. And yeah, just wanting to say that as a quick reminder, it's a bullet journal, it's not a piece of art that hangs on a wall, and it should just work for you and not be a burden of creating perfection. As I did in my last setup as well, I added a lot of stars and sparkles to my page in the end, because I am definitely in love with that in the moment. And I also wanted to add a little moth here, but that was just a one-time thing in the setup. I also use a lot of stickers from Easy Craft Art. If you haven't seen it, I recently did a haul with some products of them, and you can use my discount code for shopping there. I think you get 10% off with Nele12, and all the information is in the info box as well. I struggled a little bit with my stamps, to be honest. I bought these on Temu and they are fine, but they did not work too well with this ink pad. The ink was really wet and took ages to dry, and so it didn't turn out super perfect, but again, it doesn't have to turn out perfect, it's fine. And here we are working on my first calendar spread and a notes page for the month. I haven't had a notes page in ages, but I feel like I could use that a little bit through the month, because I have started to do something like that in September, and I don't need to create a new daily log for every single little thought or idea that I have. I think I can save some space and some time if I just have a place to dump those ideas. And my calendar is, as always now, this one line a day kind of calendar style. And I think I explained that in September already, but for me that is more of an overview to see how many appointments I had, what was important in a month. And then I have a separate space where I really plan out my days a bit more intense, but more on that in a bit. And as you can also see, I created some tabs on the pages. I wouldn't call these pages Dutch doors really, because they are probably too small for that, but to tie my setup more together and to not forget about a page, I like to do this technique of cutting away a little bit of the pages in the middle, and the tabs are just for grabbing the pages more easily and to have a bit of interest in the setup. And each tab I covered with this brown grit washi tape. And then I just used a bunch of different stickers, a lot of mushroom themed stamps and other things, and a lot from botanical collections, I would say, to make it look like autumn, because that is what I was wanting to go for. I wanted autumn colors, autumn motifs, all the cozy feelings, and I think in the end it turned out quite nice. I struggled, as I said, quite a little bit through the setup and really had to add on the go and again in the end to finally get a look that I really liked. As I said, I think if I would have used a little bit less, probably would have made it easier, maybe, who knows. But in the end I can say I like the result, and I will probably enjoy using these spreads in October. So next up we have my monthly favorites page, which I think after I planned out my pages, I would have wanted it to move a couple of pages after my planning pages, but I was too lazy to erase everything and sketch it in again, so I'm just fine with that now, and maybe next month or in November I might change that up. So here I have a section for my monthly favorites, and because I thought that I don't need a whole page for those, I might add a space for tarot, because I do enjoy tarot cards, and I might just draw some cards for October. And I have also recently created a Patreon post where I talked about how I use tarot cards for self-reflection, and if you're interested on that, you can check out my Patreon page. It's free, you don't need to sign up there or anything, you can just read everything. There are some free downloads, stuff like that. So yeah, the link is in the info box. Back to the setup. Next to my monthly favorites tarot page, we have my spendings page. This is the second month, actually kind of the third month already that I'm doing this. I have always said that I'm bad at tracking my finances and like handling my finances, and I guess that is still kind of the case. In September, I've done a no spending challenge, and that has worked out better than expected, I guess, because I need to somehow figure out how much money I can really spend and get a bit better relationship with spending money, because I am an impulsive spender and I spend a lot of money on things that I don't necessarily need. So doing the no spendings challenge and tracking what I'm buying and where my money goes and when bills come out, all that stuff, definitely helps a lot to get a better feeling for how much money I'm actually spending. And with this no spending challenge, there's also a blog post about that on my Patreon page. I also took some time to reflect on my spending habits and how I could try to deal with my money a little bit better. And I think that has been definitely helpful in September, and I hope that I can carry that into October. And so, yeah, my spendings tracker is just for tracking where I'm spending my money, when and how much and for what. It's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. So much for that, I guess. I'm just decorating the page a little bit more before we move on. And now we move on with my monthly planning pages. This is what I would call them. I've changed up the order of my setup quite a little bit in October, so this is what I will call kind of my weekly overview calendar, which has most of the weeks of October, the 4 full weeks of October, so that I can plan my to-dos a little bit better combined with my appointments, because I feel like in the 1 line a day calendar it's hard to write down to-dos for a day in the future. And I also find that daily logs often overwhelm me a little bit, because I tend to have problems with guessing how much I can really do in one day instead of setting realistic amount of tasks that I want to accomplish. I would just write down everything that I would basically want to do in a whole week, and then I get overwhelmed by my daily log and don't do anything. And with these daily, weekly, monthly calendar combination, I don't know how to really call that. I have limited space, and that is usually just enough to write down everything that is realistic to do in a day and that I need to do in a day, as well as my appointments that I have for the day. And that might seem a bit tedious to you to write down things double, maybe triple, because I also write down appointments in my phone calendar, I know. But I have ADHD, I forget things really easily, and so writing things down several times really helps me to keep on track with my things. And in the middle of the weekly calendar, I have a Dutch door. And you might have asked yourself where this page went, because usually that was next to my line a day calendar. And this Dutch door is my goals and tasks and my YouTube and Patreon page. I decided to add that in the middle of this calendar overview because I thought that flipping back to my task list every time I'm doing my planning is not really working for me, because again, I forget that it exists and that there are other things that I wrote down there and that I need to do. So I thought having that right in the middle where I can always see it, where it's omnipresent, I would be more likely to look at my monthly tasks and actually tackle them instead of forgetting about them all the time. And then we just have the second page of the weekly calendar overview. And in case I should explain that a little more in detail so you know how this actually works, I think it's kind of self-explanatory. The weeks are next to each other at the top of each column or row. I'm never sure which is what, but you see this KW42, for example, and that's calendar week because calendar in German is with a K. And then the weeks go Monday to Saturday from top to bottom. And this is how the weeks work. But I guess you already figured that out yourself. I just wanted to explain in case that wasn't clear. And this page is usually not too decoration heavy because there's not a lot of space and it's really just about the planning. But that is fine with me. It's not the main focus here. But I did add a little bit of greenery and autumn motifs on the sides and on the Dutch door in the middle, so that it looks a bit aesthetically pleasing. Off camera I also added the background of the last page, which is, by the way, tea stained paper. No, actually it's not, it's coffee stained paper. And if you're interested in how to do that, there's a video by Elizabeth from Plant-Based Bride where she does tea stained paper, but I can tell that it just works as well with coffee if you're not a tea drinking person like I am. And then it's time to move on to the last spread, and here we have my 1 line a day reflection page, which I always include. I just love doing that. It's nothing new here on the channel. And next to that we have my habits and moods tracker, which is exactly the same as always. And I can just always tell you how nice it is to write down something about your day every day. I usually do that the morning after the day ends. So I write the next day about the day before, and okay, sorry, I was wondering what I was doing there. And also fill out my tracker the next day. This month I also scrapped my workout tracker and instead included a little column for workout and running in my habit tracker, because I honestly don't need to track my workouts that intense anymore, and so I can save basically 1 page with that. And I think I also explained 100 times that my tracker is not for optimizing myself or develop new habits or something. It can be for little things like flossing, but usually it's just an observing tool for myself, what affects my moods and my habits and stuff like that, and how are my habits related to how I'm feeling and stuff like that. I think I repeated myself here 2 times, sorry for that. And in my graph tracker I usually track my mood, my energy, my stress, and I also signify my period and my ovulation in there, because all of that goes hand in hand, and that is honestly for me the most amazing tool to understand myself and why I am going through phases that I'm going through. And it's been really helpful understanding myself better in the past, and it still is, and I still don't want to say goodbye to it and change it up. So this is why I'm just repeating the same thing. And that is also what I would want to tell you with this video. I've been on YouTube now for a little bit. It's almost been a year, which is crazy, by the way. But I have been doing similar things for a couple of times, I guess, and some things just stayed the same or same-ish for a long time in my bullet journal, I mean. And I feel like a lot of creators get a bit anxious about that people could get bored by that or whatever, but I just want to remind you, in case you do share your bullet journal somewhere, that in the end you hopefully still journal for yourself, and that is that the bullet journal still is a tool that you use for yourself. And so if there is one layout and spread that just works for you, then why change it up just because that could be more interesting for your viewers or stuff? It's still something that you should enjoy and that should work for you, and if it's the same as always, that's totally fine. And also, if you don't share your bullet journal, I think it's just the same. You can either change things up if you feel you want to do that, but don't feel the pressure to do so if you feel like something really works for you. But enough of the bullet journal pep talk. I'm just finishing my spreads with some final details, with adding a few more leaves and stickers and autumn motifs, and in the end erasing a little bit of final erasing a little bit of pencil. I also wanted to add this leaf here on the cover page just because and in the end, as I already promised you, I added a bunch of stars and sparkles and glitter and gold on my spreads. So yeah, I hope that this was interesting to watch. I just want to mention quickly that, as always, I don't link all the supplies that I'm using in my info box because I just can't. I don't have the energy to do that, sorry. But if you see something that you like and you want to know where I got that from, feel free to ask and I will search it for you. And my boyfriend is coming home. Hello! The was. Alright, so yeah, quick distraction here, a quick hello from Josh. And we are already at the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed watching it, that it was inspiring to you and that you could get something out of it. And if you like my channel, then feel free to subscribe and like this video, write a comment, that always helps me out. And I hope that I see you in my next one. Until then, have a good time. Bye!